September 18th, 1943. Camp Aliceville, Alabama. Red dust hangs in the late summer air as a column of trucks grinds to a halt inside the barbed wire perimeter. Private Karl Fischer, formerly of the 15th Panzer Division, squints against the glare. The Alabama sun feels different from Tunisia's, thicker somehow, heavier. He steps down from the flatbed, boots crunching on gravel that crunches just a little too cleanly. The guard towers are wooden. The fence is new. Everything smells of pine and fresh lumber. Somewhere beyond the camp, cicadas buzz in a rising metallic chorus. Karl hears it before he understands it that a trumpet, not a bugle call, not the clipped authority of a Wehrmacht signal. This sound slides and bends, bright and brash. A burst of brass laughter followed by a rolling piano. He freezes. The other prisoners, Feldwebels and grenadiers captured after the collapse in North Africa, murmur among themselves. A few glance upward, as if enemy aircraft might be circling. But there is no drone of engines, no distant artillery. Only music that a guard near the gate, a corporal in U.S. Army khaki, chews gum and taps his foot casually. From an open window in the administration building, a radio crackles. The announcer's southern drawl fades, replaced by a swinging rhythm section. Karl knows the melody from whispered warnings in Berlin. Niger music, the propaganda pamphlets had called it. Degenerate, corrupting, forbidden under the Reich's cultural decrees. Yet here it is, blaring openly inside an American military installation. The trumpet climbs into a jubilant solo. Laughter spills from the barracks where American personnel lounge on cots, boots kicked off, sleeves rolled high. One of them whistles along. Karl feels something stranger than fear, disorientation. In Tunisia, he had expected brutality from capture. He had imagined cold cells and interrogations. Instead, he stands in a sunlit camp while the enemy broadcasts jazz at full volume. That a sergeant approaches, clipboard tucked beneath his arm. "Welcome to Alabama, boys," he says evenly. "You'll find we run things by the Geneva Convention here." The interpreter translates into clipped German. Karl hears only the trumpet, dancing wildly above a walking bass line. He stares toward the radio as if it were a weapon pointed at his chest, because in a way, it is. The gates clang shut behind them. September 20th, 1943. Camp Aliceville, Alabama. The trumpet fades into applause as the radio announcer's voice returns, cheerful and unhurried. That was Benny Goodman and his orchestra. Stay tuned, folks. Benny Goodman. The name means nothing to most of the prisoners. But the rhythm lingers like a challenge. Karl stands in formation with 200 other German POWs in the dusty yard. The Alabama sun presses down on their field gray uniforms, already faded from months in North Africa. American guards circle them loosely. M1903 Springfield rifles slung casually over their shoulders, cigarettes glowing between their fingers, and shouting. No barking dogs. Just the low hum of insects and, faintly, another song beginning on a radio inside the headquarters building. Major Robert H. Mackenzie steps onto a wooden platform. His uniform is pressed, sleeves crisp, boots polished to a deep brown shine. He surveys the prisoners calmly before speaking. "You are now prisoners of war of the United States," he begins. "You will be treated in accordance with the Geneva Convention of 1929. The interpreter, a German-American staff sergeant from Ohio, repeats the words carefully. Karl exchanges a glance with Oberstfreiter Dieter Hahn beside him. Geneva Convention, in Tunisia, Allied leaflets had promised humane treatment. Berlin had dismissed them as lies. Goebbels' broadcasts had described American camps as starvation compounds, run by gangsters and Jews. Yet the men before him look ordinary. Farm boys, perhaps. Mechanics. They laugh easily that a sudden burst of brass erupts again from the radio. This time, a faster tempo. A snare drum snaps like distant rifle fire. A clarinet spirals upward. Several prisoners flinch, instinctively point. One American guard grins. That's good swing right there. Karl feels irritation rise in his throat. Swing. The word sounds careless. In Germany, such music had been purged from public life. After 1935, jazz records were confiscated. Bands were forced to conform to approved styles. Joseph Goebbels' Ministry of Propaganda labeled it cultural decay, a symptom of racial corruption. Even listening could draw suspicion. And yet here, in enemy territory, it pours freely from government buildings. The prisoners are marched toward their assigned barracks. Long wooden structures with screened windows and iron bunks stacked neatly inside. Clean mattresses. Blankets folded precisely at the foot of each cot. Dieter mutters under his breath. This is a trick. Karl wants to agree. But he notices something unsettling. The Americans are not trying to hide their culture. The radio continues playing as they distribute tin mess kits and assign work details. Kitchen duty, laundry, agricultural labor for nearby farms suffering manpower shortages. The music becomes background noise to the administrative routine of captivity. As evening approaches, the temperature finally softens. From somewhere beyond the wire, crickets join the orchestra of the South. Inside Barrack C, Karl sits on his bunk. The window is open. The faint notes of a muted trumpet drift across the yard. He tells himself he will not listen. But the rhythm is infectious, steady, confident, alive. For the first time since surrendering near Kasserine Pass, Karl feels something unfamiliar. Curiosity. Outside, the guard in the tower taps his boot against the railing in time with the music. The war, for this moment, feels very far away. October 3rd, 1943. Camp Aliceville, Alabama. Reveille comes at 0600, sharp and metallic. A bugle, this one unmistakably military, cuts through the damp, southern morning. Karl swings his legs from the bunk, boots thudding against the wooden floorboards. But even before breakfast formation, the radio is already alive. A piano riff tumbles through the open windows of the administrative office. The notes bounce lightly, followed by a brushed snare drum and a lazy trombone. The melody is playful, almost teasing. Karl tightens his J at W in Stuttgart. Before the war, he had once heard something similar drifting from a neighbor's gramophone. 2 weeks later, the man disappeared after an anonymous denunciation. Un-German tastes, the block warden had whispered. Under the Reich Chamber of Culture, all musicians had to be registered. Works deemed influenced by Jewish or African American traditions were banned. Posters denounced jazz as cultural Bolshevism. Even syncopation itself was suspect. And now the enemy wakes to IT in the mess hall. The smell of powdered eggs and coffee fills the air. American cooks ladle generous portions onto metal trays. No one rushes them. No one strikes them. Dieter leans closer to Karl. Do you think they know what that music is? He mutters. Karl glances toward the doorway, where an American corporal hums along as he stacks crates. Of course they know, but it's forbidden. Not here. The realization lands heavily. After breakfast, work details assemble near the gate. Karl's group is assigned to a peanut farm several miles away. They ride in the back of a truck under light guard, passing clapboard houses and fields shimmering in the heat. From a farmhouse porch, a portable radio plays as a woman hangs laundry. The same rhythm, the same easy swing. No secrecy. No shame. At the field, an older farmer in overalls greets them with a nod. His 2 sons are overseas with the U.S. Army. Labor is scarce. The prisoners work under supervision but without chains, filling sacks with harvested crops. Around midday, one of the guards lights a cigarette and sets a small battery-powered radio on the truck hood. A trumpet bursts forth again, bold and triumphant. The announcer's voice carries clearly. Up next, Duke Ellington and his orchestra. The name strikes Karl harder than the music. Duke Ellington, he remembers a confiscated record shown during a propaganda lecture. A dark-skinned band leader, smiling confidently from the album sleeve. The lecturer had spat the word degenerate. Yet here, the farmer taps his foot against the dirt, nodding approvingly. The contradiction is impossible to ignore. These Americans are not collapsing into moral decay. Their farms are productive. Their soldiers disciplined. Their camp orderly. Karl wipes sweat from his brow, hands stained with soil. He listens despite himself. The melody rises, brassy and bold, then softens into something almost tender. For a fleeting second, he imagines Berlin cafes before the war. Laughter, smoke curling toward the ceiling, music drifting through open doors. A Germany that once had choices that he shakes the thought away. This is enemy culture. Yet it feels human as the sun lowers in the Alabama sky. The truck carries them back toward camp. The radio continues playing, the signal crackling faintly but never disappearing. Behind barbed wire, the music does not stop, and neither, Karl realizes uneasily, does his listening. November 12, 1943. Camp Aliceville, Alabama. Rain taps softly against the tin roof of Barracks C. The yard is mud, the watchtower lights cutting pale cones through the drizzle. Inside, the air smells of damp wool and coffee. Karl sits at a crude wooden table, sleeves rolled, staring at a sheet of paper. It is not a letter home. It is staff notation. Across from him, Unteroffizier Wilhelm Kruger adjusts the mouthpiece of a battered clarinet. Before the war, Kruger had played in a municipal orchestra in Hamburg. He had joined the Wehrmacht in 1939, traded tuxedo for field gray. Now he lifts the instrument to his lips. The first notes are cautious, thin. A German folk melody, Lily Marlene, floats into the air. Several prisoners look up from their bunks. Music in camp is permitted. The Americans encourage it. Instruments have been provided, violins, an accordion, even a trumpet salvaged from a storage depot. The Red Cross has sent sheet music. It keeps morale stable, an American lieutenant had said during inspection. Outside, faint through the rain, the camp radio hums from headquarters. A late evening broadcast from Birmingham crackles over the loudspeaker. Swing music again, softer now, almost melancholy. Kruger lowers the clarinet. They play it every night, he says quietly. Karl nods. It never stops. Dieter sits nearby, polishing a borrowed trumpet. He eyes the window. We could try it, he says. Silence. Try it. The phrase feels dangerous that in Germany, experimentation with jazz rhythms could cost a musician his career, or worse. The Reich Music Examination Office had policed harmonies and instrumentation. Improvisation was suspect. Syncopation was foreign contamination. Kruger wets his reed thoughtfully. Music is only notes, he says at last. The politics are attached later. He begins again, this time altering the rhythm slightly. The folk melody shifts. The beat loosens. Dieter joins in, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. He bends a note, slides into a phrase the way he has heard from the American broadcasts. Karl feels a flicker of alarm and excitement. The sound changes the room. What had been rigid becomes fluid. The melody swings awkwardly, then steadies. A few men laugh under their breath. Someone taps a spoon against a tin cup, creating a makeshift percussion line. For a moment, the barracks are no longer a POW compound. They are a rehearsal hall. The door creaks open, an American guard steps inside, rain dripping from his cap. He pauses, listening. The prisoners freeze mid-phrase. The guard tilts his head, then smiles slightly. Not bad, he says in slow German. Needs more swing. A ripple of nervous laughter spreads through the room that he leans against the doorway, arms crossed, listening without hostility. When the song ends, he nods once and disappears back into the rain. The men sit in stunned silence. Karl stares at his hands. The world has tilted again. The enemy does not punish them for playing forbidden music. Instead, he critiques their rhythm. Later that night, long after lights out, Karl lies awake. The rain has stopped. Somewhere beyond the wire, a distant radio plays a muted trumpet solo. Lonely, searching, he closes his eyes in the darkness of an Alabama barracks. A German soldier hums jazz. January 4th, 1944. Camp Aliceville, Alabama. Cold air slips through the cracks in the barracks walls. Frost clings to the inside of the window pane, thin and fragile. Karl sits at his bunk with a pencil stub between his fingers, the paper trembling slightly in the chill. Around him, dozens of prisoners are writing. The Americans allow 2 letters and 4 postcards per month under the rules of the Geneva Convention. The paper is stamped prisoner of war mail. Every word will be read by censors. First American, then German. Karl stares at the blank space. Dear Mutter and Fada. He hesitates. Across the yard from the recreation hall, the now familiar strains of a radio drift through the winter air. A slow ballad tonight. Muted trumpet, soft piano chords. The announcer mentions a broadcast from New York City. New York. The name once conjured images of capitalist excess in Nazi newsreels, skyscrapers, gangsters, racial chaos. Yet the music sounds restrained, almost elegant. Dieter leans over from the next bunk. Are you going to tell them? He whispers. Tell them what? The music. Karl considers the question carefully. If he writes that American camps are orderly, that food is adequate, that guards listen to jazz openly, what will the censors in Berlin allow through? The Reich has long insisted that prisoners in enemy hands suffer mistreatment. Propaganda broadcasts warn families not to believe Allied lies. Kruger folds his letter and slides it into the envelope. I wrote that we have formed an orchestra, he says quietly, that we rehearse twice a week. Dieter's eyes widen. They will cut that. Perhaps, Kruger shrugs. But perhaps not. Karl lowers his pencil to the page. That we are treated correctly. The camp is clean. I have heard music here that we were told did not belong in civilized society. He stops, listening. The trumpet outside climbs into a delicate solo, measured, precise. Not chaotic, not savage. It carries discipline within its improvisation. That he writes again to it is strange to hear it played so freely. He does not name the genre. He does not mention Duke Ellington or Benny Goodman. Those names might never pass inspection, but the implication is there. Later that afternoon, an American sergeant collects the letters. He carries them in a canvas mailbag slung over his shoulder. No mocking, no threats, just procedure. Karl watches the bag disappear into the administration building. That a thought unsettles him. Somewhere in Germany, perhaps in a small apartment in Stuttgart, his mother may read words that contradict years of official messaging. And if enough letters say similar things, that evening, in the recreation hall, the camp orchestra performs again. This time, their arrangement leans deliberately into swing. The rhythm is steadier now. Confident that a handful of American guards gather near the doorway, listening. One taps his heel against the wooden floor in time. Karl stands at the back, arms folded, pretending detachment. But when Dieter takes a brief, improvised solo, awkward yet earnest, Karl feels something shift inside him. The music does not erase the war, but it complicates it. Beyond the wire, a freight train whistle echoes across the Alabama night. Inside the camp, German prisoners applaud a jazz-inflected melody. March 19th, 1944. Camp Aliceville, Alabama. Sunday afternoon settles gently over the camp. The sky is pale blue, the air warm enough to carry the scent of pine beyond the fences. Laundry flutters between barracks like improvised flags of truce. Karl stands near the recreation hall, sleeves rolled, watching as an American technician adjusts a large wooden radio set placed on a table outside headquarters. A wire antenna stretches upward toward a pole. Special broadcast today, the technician says to a fellow soldier. Live from New York. The word spreads quickly among the prisoners. Live.by now. The music is no longer shocking. It has become part of camp life, like roll call or mess. But a live performance feels different. Immediate. Uncontrolled. The loudspeaker crackles, then clears. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, the announcer begins. Broadcasting from the Paramount Theater, a wave of applause roars faintly through the static. Then the band launches in, brass bright and unified, saxophones weaving in tight formation, drums snapping sharply on the offbeat. Karl feels the sound in his chest before he processes it. The rhythm is precise, almost military in its coordination. Sections rise and fall with discipline. When the trumpet solo breaks free, it does so within structure, not chaos but controlled release. Beside him, Dieter murmurs, "It is organized." Kruger nods slowly. Very organized. The irony is not lost on them. For years, Nazi cultural policy had portrayed jazz as primitive and disordered. Yet here, In this live broadcast from the heart of America, the ensemble moves with technical mastery. The arrangement is complex, rehearsed, exact. An American guard nearby closes his eyes briefly, absorbed in the music. His rifle leans casually against the wall. Karl studies the faces around him. Some prisoners remain stiff, arms crossed in defiance. Others lean forward unconsciously, drawn in. When the band shifts into a slower number, a female vocalist steps to the microphone. Her voice carries warmth and clarity even through radio static. She sings of distance, of longing, of waiting for someone overseas. Waiting, the word hangs heavily in the Alabama air. Many of the guards have brothers in Europe or the Pacific. Many of the prisoners have families in bomb-threatened German cities. The song does not distinguish between uniforms. Karl feels an unexpected tightening in his throat. For a moment, the barbed wire fades into the background. There's only the human voice carried across thousands of miles. When the performance ends, applause erupts faintly from a speaker. In the camp yard, silence follows. Then, unexpectedly, one of the German prisoners begins to clap, that a few others join hesitantly. The sound is uncertain at first, isolated, almost rebellious. Then it grows, spreading through the yard until dozens of prisoners applaud openly. The guards exchange glances but do not interfere. Karl brings his hands together slowly. The war has not changed. Germany still fights. America still stands as the enemy. But something intangible has shifted again. The propaganda had promised cultural decay. Instead, he has witnessed discipline, artistry, and confidence broadcast without fear. As the loudspeaker hums and clicks off, the afternoon returns to its quiet rhythm. Karl looks up at the watchtower. The guard there is humming the melody. And for the first time, Karl hums it too, without hesitation. June 6, 1944. Camp Aliceville, Alabama. The news arrives before dawn. A jeep roars through the front gate in a spray of gravel. Officers stride quickly into headquarters, boots sharp against the wooden steps. Within minutes, the camp loudspeaker crackles to life. Not with music, but with a clipped bulletin from a national network. Allied forces have begun landings along the northern coast of France. The yard falls silent. Karl stands frozen beside the wash basin outside Barracks C. Water dripping from his hands. France. Normandy. The word echoes through him like distant artillery. The broadcast continues, urgent but controlled. Naval bombardment. Airborne divisions. Beaches with unfamiliar code names. The guards listen intently. Some remove their caps. Others grip their rifles a little tighter. Not at the prisoners, but from sheer tension in "Oh Jazz" this morning. The absence feels louder than any trumpet that BY midday. Rumors churn through the camp like wind through tall grass. Some prisoners insist the landings will fail. Others stare at the ground, calculating silently. The Americans' confidence over the past months, their industry, their resources, their music played without apology, suddenly seems connected to this moment. Dieter corners Karl near the barracks wall. If they have the strength to invade France, he says quietly, what else were we wrong about? Karl does not answer. In Berlin, broadcasts had promised secret weapons, unstoppable defenses along the Atlantic Wall. The Reich had portrayed the Allies as divided and decadent. Yet here, in Alabama, the enemy had appeared orderly, patient, assured. That evening, as dust settles heavy and purple over the camp, the radio returns at T first. It carries updates from Europe, measured reports, careful phrasing. Then, unexpectedly, the announcer shifts tone, and now, a special dedication for the boys overseas. A trumpet cuts through the humid air, bright and defiant. The tempo is faster than usual, urgent. The brass section punches sharply, drums driving forward with relentless precision. IT is not mournful, that IT is confident. Karl feels the energy ripple across the yard. The guards stand a little straighter. One of them, barely older than 20, whispers, "That's for my brother." The music swells, saxophones climbing together before yielding to a blistering solo. It is controlled chaos, but not desperate. The rhythm never falters. For the first time, Karl understands something deeper. This music is not decay, that it is momentum. The same society that produces endless trucks and fuel, endless bombers and ships, also produces this. Art that moves forward without fear of improvisation. Kruger stands beside him, eyes fixed on the speaker. They are not afraid of change, he murmurs. The phrase lingers in Germany. Culture had been narrowed, purified, policed. Here, it expands freely. Even during war, the final notes crash into applause from a distant studio audience. Karl exhales slowly. The beachheads in France may yet be contested. The war is far from decided, but the wall inside him, the one built from years of propaganda, has begun to fracture, and it began with a trumpet in Alabama. August 14th, 1944. Camp Aliceville, Alabama. The heat is suffocating. Cicadas scream from the trees beyond the fence, their rhythm relentless as machine gun fire. Sweat darkens the backs of khaki shirts and field gray tunics alike. Karl balances a crate of canned goods in his arms as he moves through the camp kitchen. Today, he has been reassigned from farm duty to food storage, a detail considered trustworthy work. Trustworthy. The word still feels strange. Months of routine have softened the rigid lines between guard and prisoner. Not erased them, but altered them. Conversations occur now, brief and cautious. A shared cigarette during a thunderstorm. A comment about the weather. Music as neutral ground. Near the open doorway, an American private named Thomas Green leans against a flour sack, a harmonica cupped in his hands. He begins to play. Tentative at first, then stronger to it is a blues progression, simple and repetitive. Not jazz exactly, but kin to it. The notes bend and sigh in the humid air. Karl pauses. Green notices him watching. He lowers the harmonica. You play, he asks slowly, tapping his own chest. Music, Karl hesitates, then nods. Clarinet. He replies in careful English. Green grins. Good. Jazz needs clarinet. The statement is delivered casually, without ideology, without lecture. That evening, something unusual happens. With permission from the camp commandant, a small joint performance is arranged in the recreation hall. Nothing official, just entertainment to ease tensions during the long summer. German POW musicians on one side, a few American guards on the other. The audience, both uniforms, separated by empty space, but under the same roof, a single bulb hangs overhead, casting long shadows on the wooden floor. Kruger raises his clarinet. Dieter holds the trumpet. Green steps forward with his harmonica. An American corporal sits behind a borrowed drum kit. The first notes are cautious, an old German marching tune. It feels safe, familiar. Then the rhythm shifts subtly. The drummer introduces a swing beat. Green layers in a blues line beneath the melody. Karl watches the transformation in real time. The rigid march loosens. The tempo breathes. The clarinet adapts, weaving between the harmonica's phrases, and one speaks. There's only the sound. Improvised, collaborative. For a brief, fragile moment, the wire outside feels distant. When the song ends, applause fills the hall. Not thunderous, not triumphant, but genuine. Karl catches Green's eye across the room. They exchange a small nod. The war still rages across France. Paris may fall soon. Germany is under bombardment. None of that changes here. Yet in this Alabama camp, the boundaries of culture have shifted. Later, lying on his bunk, Karl stares at the ceiling beams. He recalls the lectures in Stuttgart, the posters condemning degenerate art. He remembers believing them without question. Now he has played alongside the supposed embodiment of that decay, and what he felt was not corruption, that it was connection. Outside, a radio hums softly in the night, carrying another distant broadcast into the warm southern darkness. Karl does not turn away from it anymore. December 24th, 1944. Camp Aliceville, Alabama. Cold rain lashes the camp in sheets, turning the yard into a mirror of black mud and barbed wire. Wind rattles the barracks walls, slipping through seams with a low whistle. Inside the recreation hall, a Christmas tree stands near the stage. modest, strung with paper ornaments crafted by prisoners. A small American flag hangs behind it. No one has removed it. Karl stands near the back, hands clasped behind him. Word arrived days ago of a massive German counteroffensive in the Ardennes. The guards call it the Battle of the Bulge. The prisoners whisper that it is Germany's last gamble. The radio has carried grim reports all week. Fierce fighting, heavy casualties, freezing conditions in Belgium. Yet even in the darkest bulletins, the American announcers never sound panicked. Tonight, the loudspeaker crackles with a special holiday broadcast for troops overseas. From New York to our boys in Europe, a slow piano begins, deliberate and warm. Then a trumpet enters, muted, almost fragile. The melody is familiar even to the Germans, Silent Night. But it is not performed as a rigid hymn. The tempo sways gently. The harmonies are richer, layered. When the clarinet joins, it bends the notes slightly, giving the ancient carol a new contour. Karl feels the sound settle over the room like snowfall. Kruger closes his eyes. Dieter lowers his head, and O1 has ordered them to listen. They simply do. The vocalist's voice rises softly, singing in English. Karl does not understand every word, but he knows the story. Peace. Holy night. All is calm. Calm. The irony presses against him. In Europe, artillery pounds frozen forests. Cities burn under bombardment. Families huddle in cellars. Here, in Alabama, enemy soldiers and German prisoners share the same song. When the final note fades, silence lingers, and an American sergeant clears his throat. "Anyone want to add a verse?" he asks, almost awkwardly. Kruger steps forward without waiting for permission. In German, steady but restrained, he begins. Still nacked, Heilige Nacht, the room shifts. Some guards stiffen, uncertain. Others listen intently. Karl joins quietly. Then Dieter. Then more voices rise, filling the hall with harmonies learned in childhood churches thousands of miles away. German and American voices overlap. Not perfectly synchronized, not entirely unified, but close enough. The song ends without applause. Outside, rain continues to fall. Karl steps back into the night air, breath visible in the cold. From a distant barracks window, someone has turned the radio back on. A faster tune now, brighter, resilient, that he thinks of the Ardennes, of men freezing in foxholes, of a Reich promising miracles that grow more distant by the day. For months, jazz had unsettled him, then intrigued him, then connected him. Now, it represents something else. Endurance. The music does not falter, even as the war turns decisively against Germany. Karl looks up at the watchtower light cutting through rain. For the first time, he understands that defeat is not only measured in territory lost, it is measured in illusion surrendered. It has began to fall apart the moment he heard that first trumpet in Alabama. May 8th, 1945. Camp Aliceville, Alabama. The announcement comes just after noon that a jeep races through the gate again, but this time the mood is unmistakable. Nota idios, no ergin guispers. Instead, laughter, disbelieving at first, then unrestrained. Inside headquarters, the radio volume rises sharply. Germany has signed an unconditional surrender. Victory in Europe is declared. The words echo across the compound. Karl stands in the yard, hands at his sides, heart pounding as if under artillery fire. Around him, prisoners exchange stunned glances. Some sink onto benches. One man covers his face with both hands that it is over. The guards do not shout. They do not gloat. A few remove their caps quietly. One crosses himself. Then, as if by instinct, the radio shifts, the burst of brass explodes into the warm Alabama air. Bright, jubilant, uncontained. The tempo races. Drums snap like celebratory gunfire. The announcer's voice strains to be heard above the music. Benny Goodman and his orchestra for V-Day. The yard transforms. American soldiers clap each other on the back. Someone whoops loudly from the watchtower. The kitchen staff spill out of the mess hall, aprons still on, grinning. Karl feels something unexpected rise in his chest. Not anger, not humiliation. Released, he watches as Green emerges from the recreation hall with his harmonica already in hand. Without waiting for orders, he joins the broadcast, playing along with the rhythm pouring from the loudspeaker. Dieter looks at Karl. "Well," he says quietly in German, "we cannot pretend anymore." "No," Karl replies. They step toward the recreation hall together. Inside, the camp orchestra gathers almost automatically. Kruger lifts his clarinet. Dieter raises his trumpet. No one gives instructions. No one assigns roles. The American broadcast blares through open windows, swing at full force, triumphant and unapologetic. The Germans join in the T first. They follow the melody carefully. Then the tempo pulls them forward. The clarinet dances between phrases. The trumpet climbs higher, stronger than Karl has ever heard it. Outside, guards and prisoners stand shoulder to shoulder in the doorway. Watching, there is no illusion left now. No belief in secret weapons. No expectation of reversal. The Reich that banned this music lies in ruins. Yet here, in a camp thousands of miles away, German soldiers play the very sound they were taught to despise. Karl closes his eyes briefly. He remembers the first day, the dust, the shock of hearing jazz in enemy territory. He remembers the anger, the confusion, the slow erosion of certainty. Now, as the final chorus crashes into applause from the distant New York audience, he understands something profound. He has been liberated in a way that has nothing to do with barbed wire. The gates of Camp Aliceville will open in time. Repatriation will come. Germany will be rubble. The future uncertain, but the wall inside him, the one built from fear of ideas, fear of difference, has already fallen. The trumpet rings out one last brilliant note. This time, Karl does not flinch as he plays.